So the alternate translation for this chapter is actually The Nest of Vice, and I kinda like that version just because I really like the image of Lang just sitting around doing a smoke. Or I guess standing. He's just kinda standing there, doing nothing. Hanging around, dramatically expecting us. Joke's on him, we've gotta do How's Everyone first. Alright, it's nearly time to take care of Lang. But of course Jagan has to criticize us first. We're past the point of, like, the speed and skill checks, so at this point, Iris is probably not going to be quite as impressive. Well, thanks for that, Jagan. Really nice. Yep, we're wimps. Thanks. Good of you to tell us that. Please, Jagan, tell us how you really feel. Alright, how is everyone? Oh, that is actually extremely helpful. That was like the perfect person to have that boost for this specific chapter. And yes, of course there's no wind, Warren. We're indoors. You fool. Cord, again, we're indoors. How did you do that? Why did you leave the building to cut down trees? And we got a strength potion. I believe we've gone over those before, right? They're just boosts to, stats. But now that we're done with that, time for conversation, starting with Julian. Well, that's a good idea, considering villagers around here really don't do much outside of just telling us stuff we need to know. They're really helpful, but I don't know, how many of them have tutorials? Also, how do they all make sure to separate those tutorials? Like, each villager knows who does what. Like, oh, I'm the guy who tells you about weapon ranks, and my next door neighbor, she talks about tomes. Oh wow, we don't have a lot of conversations this time around. I thought we had more, but I guess I'm thinking about the next chapter. Hell yeah! Well, I've got no objections to that. Let's go kick Lang's ass. Oh, that would figure. Navarre is prone to being an anime rival. He's gotta be an enemy every time. He's so dramatic. I love how Seda just does not notice any of her tactics. Like, that's what she does to recruit people. It seems terrifying to other people, because, like, hey, you're trying to appeal to a bloodthirsty cutthroat, but say it, it's like, nah, makes sense, that's just what I do. What's weird about that? Anyway, though, Seda's the one with that conversation, but, you know, we're probably gonna find Navarre in this chapter since he's been mentioned, and, I'm just gonna say you can't talk to him with other people. So, let's get this chapter started. Navarre, are you feeling okay? You're really talkative. Ogma, no, I'm cool. I'm his rival. Yep. He's just like me. Yep. We share the same darkness or whatever, I guess. I don't. Can I just get to work? Alright, so, starting off, we're going to want to take care of this mage. There is actually a second mage in Lunatic mode. Honestly, looking over the map for Lunatic, it really doesn't look too bad. A few things to slow you down here and there, but nothing really amazingly noteworthy. I say amazingly because I am going to be making note of them. So, I'm going to be sending Ryan this way, and this is the point at which a hunter would have actually been really useful, because that guy over there has Swarm. Now, later in the game, Swarm really isn't a big deal. It is a very long-range attack tome. so they can hit you from a distance. However, Swarm's accuracy isn't that good later on. At the moment, it's got just enough accuracy and we don't have quite enough dodge ability to really effectively dodge them every time. And of course, resistance being what it is, well, we're gonna take a lot of damage if we do get hit. See, it's a bit of a weighted coin flip in this situation. I would suggest taking out these knights and, mages and whatnot over on this side, just because, as Lang mentioned, there are soldiers coming, so we're going to want to make sure we don't have anybody behind us, well, I guess in front of us, to be behind us when we turn around to fight the other people. You get the point. Kill these guys so they're not a problem later. Then again, it's not like there's that much to really take care of at the moment, so it's not a huge deal. Just try to clean this up quickly. It's just, there's not much else to do other than clean this up quickly. It's a little tricky to deal with, but we sent most of our units over that way, so it should be fine. I mean, it could be both. You never know. I sure do hope it's not more people trying to kill us. A big promotion is just around the corner for someone much more talented than you. Laughter is the very best medicine. Remember that when your appendix bursts this week. Alright, so, this chapter's got quite a few star shards, by the way, and that's one of the missable ones. The other ones aren't really so bad, but yeah, absolutely make sure you open that chest. Oh, and while I'm thinking about it, apparently you can actually recruit Rickard here if you didn't recruit him in the previous chapter. That's never actually happened to me, because of course it takes a long time for him to get to the actual point where he'll escape the previous map. Like, his escape point is near the village in that chapter, which, it's pretty far away. It's kind of hard not to recruit him. Oh, hey Frey, how's it going? Don't worry, I already acknowledged that you're alive, so I'm not gonna freak out about it this time. And of course we also have Norn, so basically the beginning of the game Shadow Dragon characters, neither of which I got because of course Norn just doesn't join you unless people have died, which is dumb. Hopefully in the inevitable, third remake of the original game, they just let you have Norn without having to kill people off. That'd be nice. So yeah, it was indeed both. We get Frey and Norn first, and I suppose we should talk about them. So, Frey's not that bad a character. His stats are all fairly good. His bases are alright, as are his growth rates. I would be a little worried about that strength, but other than that, 60% is usually about the percentage I find growth rates to be good at. Honestly, one of his biggest problems is pretty much you have a lot of other Cavaliers, to the point where, unless you've been actively avoiding them, you've probably been training a Cavalier already, so unless you have an open spot in your team, you don't really need Frey that much. And unfortunately, Norn suffers from pretty much the same problem Frey does. We've already recruited 2 archers and 2 hunters, and as such, she struggles to stand out a bit. Now granted, I'd still take her over Gordon and maybe Warren, but being an archer does set her back a bit due to her movement, and of course, that low strength doesn't help either. That being said though, she's not a bad character at all, and if you haven't been focusing on Ryan or Castor, it's really not bad to pick her up instead. It's just, chances are, you've already started focusing on someone else. So we're not going to be using either of these characters, of course, but, now that we have them, they're pretty solid, I think. I don't know, future me is going to have to talk about that, and she knows more than I do. She's actually looking at the character sheets. But anyway, yeah, this is why you want Ryan, and this is why it's a good thing. I got Resistance, though actually neither of those guys have Attack Tome, so never mind. The speed's useful, of course, but then again he's already fairly quick, so it's fine. He probably would have been fine even without that boost, but hey, it did help. This chapter is a bit different if you are playing on harder modes, because of course those enemies will move immediately on harder modes. So I would suggest basically not keeping your units this close, because there are quite a few waves of reinforcements in this chapter, and if you do what I'm doing on a harder mode, that is way too many free hits the enemy's going to get off of you, so basically, I'd just group everyone to one side, maybe try to shift them to the right, because it doesn't take long to kill the enemies on the left side. Meanwhile, you're going to have somebody killing the Swarm and Physic user. By the way, I don't think I mentioned it before, but Physic is a long-ranged healing staff, so you also want to take care of them, because they will use those Physic staffs. They're not afraid to do so. Believe it or not, though, there is actually a even more powerful staff. Why am I forgetting the word staff? Oh well. Anyway, though, yeah, try to shift everyone to the right, since that's probably going to be where most of your characters are. You don't want any of these enemies veering off, you know. It's not horrible if they separate, but it just makes it easier for you if they don't. And yeah, try to hang back, just so nobody attacks you when they're summoned. Other than that, though, yeah, on normal mode, this really isn't much of an issue at all. Just make sure to keep up with healing, make sure tough characters in the front, make sure you acknowledge who has ranged weapons, though, to be fair, this is the point in the game in which soldiers aren't really that good. Soldiers are pretty much always sort of the beginning of the game enemies that aren't going to last because their stats are just bad, so unless they're a playable class, mid to... well, if there are late-game soldiers, then they're also bad, but yeah, mid-game soldiers aren't too bad. I say mid-game, but it's only Chapter 6. That's how bad soldiers are, they're already obsolete. The enemy should really stop using them, but then again, they are easy experience, so I probably shouldn't complain. Anyway, though, I don't believe I actually discussed this in Shadow Dragon. I'm pretty sure I saved that for this game, but let's talk about the canon sacrifice of Shadow Dragon. So, in that game, in the prologue chapters, there's a moment in which you have to send out a decoy. Basically, a whole lot of super tough enemies, generals I believe, are actually on your tail, and you're stopped by a locked door. Now, those enemies won't actually be summoned if so many people have died. However, if you've not had any casualties, then you'll need a decoy. This is the only moment in which something like that happens. It's not even like a minor function in the game, like, there is no other point in which you need a decoy or can make a decoy unit, but basically whoever character you choose as the decoy is removed for the rest of the game, because supposedly they get killed by the pursuing force. Because Gil's a big ol' moron. He's like, well, clearly the Marth running away is the real Marth, let's go get him! And surprise, it's the decoy. So, of course, the canon sacrifices Frey. Reason being is, he is exclusive to Shadow Dragon. He does not appear on harder modes. Basically, on harder modes, you start in Chapter 1, you skip the prologue. So, yeah, all signs point to he's the canon sacrifice, and of course, I believe even his support conversation in this game says, yeah, no, that was Frey. But, that being said, any character technically could be the, decoy in that game, just because, canonically, while they do get, brutally beaten and, basically, stabbed, I guess, within an inch of their lives, they are taken out because they're not able to recover even by the time that Marth returns to Altia. However, they do survive, just barely. But as I said before, it's good old Frey. He's the canon choice, but hey, now he's here. And again, we're not really going to be using him, though he is probably the best choice of knights in Shadow Dragon. Of the three you get at the start, his stats are really good. Technically speaking, your decoy, if you want to min-max or just, you know, remove the character you're not going to use, the decoy should be Jagan. Alright, so we're basically getting everyone into position at this point. I guess you could just, I don't know, open the doors now, but once you open one set of doors, all the enemies that can move will start moving, so You know, I just want to make sure everybody's in a good spot. Frey will be our door opener. And, you might notice if you've played the game before that I have Seda on the right. But Navarre is on the left, and that's because Ogma can talk to Navarre. Okay, you don't sound like Navarre at all, but God, you are trying so hard to be edgy. Did you just become a teen? Also, I love how Ogma just accepts it, like, alright, well, I guess we have to kill each other eventually. But no, it is in fact Samto, who's a new character. He wasn't in Shadow Dragon, but he does have a bit of backstory, actually, with Ogma specifically. Oh, and of course, a gladiator from Norda. Why wouldn't it be Norda, the worst town on the face of the earth? Samto, I know it's good to have backstory, but should you really just be discussing this with Ogma? Hey Ogma, remember that time you were beaten to save us, and then you got scars both physically and emotionally? Hey, remember that, Ogma? Remember me, your friend, also the person who's possibly linked to a bit of trauma in your life? I mean, granted, that's probably the most emotional response I've seen from any character in the Arcania series, but, you know, maybe don't upset Ogma. He's been through a lot. Alright, so, Samto time. Hey, do you like Myrmidons? Because we're about to get our first Myrmidon, you know, barring the Avatar, of course. Samto has pretty much the exact stats you'd expect from a Myrmidon. Good skill speed, decent everything else, but nothing terribly impressive. Strength especially. You want to know the major drawbacks to Samto? We're about to get two Myrmidons who are far better than he is. And I do mean about to, as in the next 2 chapters, we'll be getting them. So unless you're astronomically impatient, you are about to get characters who are definitely better than Samto is. So, sorry Samto. I mean, I would say that's the fault of the developers for not really distributing the Myrmidons that well, but, I mean, we do have Iris, and, she's already better than Samto is, so, whoops. There's travel in your future when your tongue freezes to the back of a speeding bus. Fill that void in your pathetic life by playing Whack-A-Mole 17 hours a day. Alright, so indeed, he's the other character with a star shard other than Lang. Of course, Aquarius will drop if you kill him, but, you know, there's no reason to kill him. I kinda like Samto, he's alright. I mean, in fairness, I don't care about him that much either way. I like that he's got a bit of backstory, but outside of that, there's not much to him. I could say that about basically any character in this game, even the important ones. I don't know, I feel like I'm one of the few people, other than like Nintendo itself, who really likes Arcania, even though I can't tell why, cause like, there's not much to go off of. And it's not like these were my first Fire Emblem games either, so I don't know why I like these games so much, or like the characters within. I mean, the games I know why. I like the chapter design, mostly in this game. I've aired my grievances about Shadow Dragon before. I don't hate it, but God, could it be better. I do like this game, though. It's just, you know, the characters are, they're not as fleshed out as they could be. This game really needs the Echoes treatment. There's not really that much else to say about this chapter. Take this part slowly, because these knights are actually pretty tough. If you rush straight out to the center of the room, they'll probably tear you apart, and you don't want that. See, I only took 2 hits for board, but goddamn, he came close to death. Same to Marth as well. Thankfully, because of the knight's low movement, that guy in the center can't actually do anything to me. And of course, other than that, it's just a couple of healers who you'll also want to take out just so they don't help Lang at all. Of course, if you leave a dude alive, I believe the healers will rush to their aid, but that's not going to happen because Board just hammered him. Just smacked him with a hammer and he died, and he got a mediocre level? I mean, defense is rare, but that in HP is all he got, huh? And I mean, he is guaranteed HP, so it's not like that's a huge thing. Anyway, first things first, I'd like to point out, as I mentioned before, Lang does carry a Star Shard, and wouldn't you know it, his Star Shard is Cancer. I mean, look, I think calling people Cancer in general is a terrible thing to do, but Lang is A, a fictional character, and B, extremely garbage, so like, you know, I don't feel that bad. It's a fitting Star Shard for him. Mainly because he's crabby, but anyway though, yeah, Lang is a fairly tough boss. Of course, he's got a javelin, and he does actually have the strength to make that javelin intimidating. Maybe not the skill as much, probably more so in harder modes. Oh, and one dumb thing that I don't like about the DS games is that only one character can have a unique conversation with a boss, so I want to fight Lang with Marth because I think Marth gets the best conversation. He has one with the Avatar, which is meh. I just think Marth's is better because Marth has more of a reason to be angry with him, and also I wish I got the critical hit second rather than first. I do like finishing off important bosses with crits, but obviously that's not really a thing I have control over, so oh well, whatever, I'll accept it. The position of Jupiter says that you should spend the rest of the week face down in the mud. Try not to shove a roll of duct tape up your nose while taking your driver's test. So yeah, anyway, as I was saying before, I think Marth just has the better conversation. I do like that it's one of those moments that Marth, despite being a pacifist, clearly recognizes that Lang is a terrible person who will never redeem himself. He gives him a chance, but he knows that he's not going to accept the chance, so it's killing time. It's honestly the conversation he should have had with Geol in the first game, or at the very least something like it, but instead, he had nothing for the man who killed his father. I don't even remember what the Avatar's conversation is. I think they just get mad at Lang for being a dick, and if you go with his generic conversation, Lang tries to persuade them to put their weapons down, and I guess it works because he's like, haha, I fooled you, even though he didn't. Maybe Lang's just an idiot. That is always a possibility. Oh hi! I'm free! He just immediately got freed the moment Lang died. It's one of those jail cells that's connected to somebody's life force. We killed Lang and the door went da-da-da-da-da-da-da, and then Wendell just walked out. Oh yeah, good times, good times. Oh no, 12 star spheres? Can we find them all before the villain? Well, I guess it's a good thing Irreparable Ruin takes time to start. This is all very hard to take in, jeez. So there are Star Sphere shards that you are required to pick up, so no matter what you will have some. However, there are some that are missable, and if you've missed any by this point, which I think is only the one, Libra I think it was, that we got in the beginning, I think that's the only one that's missable at the moment, but quick bit of advice, don't miss it. You remember the Irreparable Ruin part, right? It is perma-missable. You can't go back to previous chapters. I mean, they don't really have like a functioning government at the moment, which would really help considering the country's kind of in ruins. Oh, and of course this is actually a check for if anybody's died. Of course we haven't had anybody killed just yet, so Marth's happy. I'm glad we could make Marth happy. I like that guy. He's nice. He's pretty good, Prince. He's alright. Why would you fear that? Oh no, mercenaries. We've never dealt with them before. We'll punch those mercenaries right in the face. Oh, thanks a lot, Wendell. Now we have to stay until after the video to talk about you. Ugh. So anyway, if there's something you need to know about Arcanian old people, is that they're always the worst. And well, Wendell's not really an exception. He's not horrendously bad, but there's really not that much of a reason to use him. He's kind of a magical Jagan in that he's actually not a terrible crutch, but his growth rates aren't fantastic. I will say, his growth rates do actually bolster some of his lower base stats, but I don't think that really does that much for him. One of the best things he has going for him is pretty much his B rank in tomes, so if you have any high-level tomes lying around, Wendell can just use them immediately. Of course, I would say he's a better healer, but he only starts with a staff rank of D, which isn't really the best.